So, welcome everybody on behalf of UNISA Press. It's an honor for us to have been afforded this opportunity to handle this text and publish it. And I must say, I personally had read it the time we received it, and okay, now I'm reading it with different eyes, and I must say I haven't finished reading it for the second time. But again, on behalf of our Vice Principal, Professor Ngwepe, and the Vice Chancellor, Professor Puleng Nkabula, you're all welcome to this launch of this beautiful book, Breaking Free from the Cycle of Family Abuse, A Daughter's Journey, a memo by Dr. Gugu Zungu. I'm pretty sure that we will all enjoy and get the nuggets that are going to fall from this conversation as we launch. But yeah, you are welcome, and I really do not want to waste time. I want us to catch up on some few minutes we were on the tarmac so that we can get this flight airborne. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at the face of it, when you handle this book, there are a lot of things that we'll engage and talk about from the cover, from the name, but Dr. Zungu will take us through this as we deliberate. But I find the book to be at the right time and the right moment, more so in the South African context, where in fact it's not even my thinking. I think it's now been proclaimed as a crisis in South African context, gender-based violence. And yes, probably you are sitting around the table today, taking the nuggets on the book from the side of, and which predominantly happens from females, are the predominantly the recipients of gender-based abuse. But we are also not oblivious, and you're not going to be blind to the fact that it's even happening to the male counterparts. And when one goes through this text, which I'm not going to preempt the panelist and the author will indulge us in, it's what's shocking, even the statistics of late. I listened to this last week. The alarming statistics suggest that gender-based violence or acts of criminality on gender-based violence are not perpetuated by strangers, but by people around us, people we care for, who we expect them to care for us, people we love, people we know. These things are happening, in the lack of a better word, in our last line of defense in our homes. And I must give Dr. Zungu a high five for the bold step of opening her mouth and removing the taboo on this sensitive matter, and yet a very painful subject in the lives of many, if I may, South Africans. So I welcome all of you, and this is the context within which we are sitting around here to launch this book. Good morning, colleagues. Dr. Zungu, take us through this book. Why this book?
All right. Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I just want to thank you all once again for your tremendous patience. Thank you so much, especially given that it's a Friday and I'm sure you have other things that you have wanted to do. So I thank you from the very bottom of my heart for giving me a chance and not losing patience with me. Okay, so I decided to write this book a couple of years ago because it's something that I had always wanted to do, because I knew that my family dynamics were not normal. When I would go to school, when I went to university, I would see how other people interacted with their families, and I realized that there's something going on with my family. The problem is that at the time, I wasn't educated about it. I didn't have the terminology to describe it well. But I knew that this was a book that needed to be written, because when I did confide in some of my friends, they had absolutely no idea what I was talking about, because most of them had economic challenges. They had they had various challenges with their families, but it was never similar to mine. I was always a type of anomaly. So I had always promised myself that I would write a book. I would write it in a very transparent voice, and I would be completely unvarnished. I wouldn't leave anything out. I would start from childhood all the way until my university years, up until I was at a point where I felt sufficiently educated enough. So I started writing it. I wrote around 40,000 words, and then I stopped because I felt as if maybe people might not believe me. People might not believe that the people who are your blood, the people who are supposed to protect you the most, can be capable of enacting so much violence towards you unprovoked. And then fortunately, I don't know, I think I found the courage, or maybe it was because the pandemic happened, but I found myself with a lot of time on my hands, and I decided to just be brave and to just complete the book, okay? So my biggest hope was that, number one, I could expand people's definition of what I believe to be mental illness. I wanted people to know that usually, whenever you see somebody being extremely violent, or particularly towards their child, it always stems from certain family dynamics and from mental illness. So the other thing that I wanted people to walk away with is I wanted them to know that it is possible for a mother to simply not have a connection with their child. I know that most of us are led to believe that nature wires us to love our children no matter what. But I wanted to demystify that and to show people that it is possible for a mother to have a child and to have absolutely no emotional connection to the child whatsoever. And I also wanted people to know that whenever there's that type of mental illness in a family, it's never just one person. It's widespread throughout the family. It's just that social norms prevent us from speaking openly about it. And lastly, I was hoping that people would understand that just because you see somebody and they seem to be functioning at a very high level, what I mean by that is just because you see somebody having a good job or a good position in the community, that does not automatically translate into them being psychologically healthy. People know how to behave in public so that they don't arouse suspicion, okay? I can be a doctor right now. I can have all the degrees in the world, but when I am home amongst my loved ones, I can be a total monster. But you would never know because I know how to behave whenever I'm around people. So I just wanted to demystify that. I want people to go beyond the accolades that somebody has accumulated along the way. Go beyond somebody's position in society. Look beyond their physical appearance, and realize that just because they seem to be functioning and they seem to be sane does not mean that they're okay. They might be a monster lurking within.
Wow, you're not rambling. You said a mouthful. But I'm not going to repeat what you said. I want us to sit with those words. I want us to digest them. When we call, Professor Mpofu to come in and give us, his perspective, and then we'll come back and engage with the 4 things that I picked up that you mentioned as the fuel that propelled you to sit down and pen this text. And one thing that I'm going to highlight is that you've already answered. Somebody's going to read, you're going to have 2 people or 3 people reading this book. One person who's going to read this book, somebody's going to be totally neutral and be clinical and read this text and have no opinion. The second person who's going to read this book is going to be somebody who, in one way, shape, or form, looking at some of the reasons that propelled you here, is going to read this and relate with you and feel the pain, not necessarily be sympathetic, but empathize, having walked through this. And the third person who's going to read this book, which is already touched on it, and somebody's going to read this book, firstly, either not believe that this happened to you, or the other side of it is that what is written here is true, but I'm actually have been the one on the wrongly receiving end, because all these social failures and mental illness, they were directed at me, and I've never done anything of this from their point of view. But let's pause it there, colleagues. Prof. Pofu, would you like to give us your perspective on this beautiful text, openly articulated, and let's hear it from your perspective. Professor Pofu is from the Department of Communication Science at UNISA. Over to you, sir.
All right, thank you very much for the invite and also to speak at this book launch. I think the delay also helped me a bit because I was undergoing a dental procedure, so I'm still struggling to speak. Half of my face is still numb, so I think it was a good help to delay. For me, this book, at first reading, you know, it is a harrowing story, almost unbelievable. But as you read, you come to believe and also come to understand. It's a harrowing story of a young child or young lady who suffers all forms of imaginable horrors from very close family members. And you talk about abuse, you talk about neglect, you talk about even spiritual abuse, torture, you know, and this comes from very close members, like her mother, the grandmother, and the church family. Law enforcement fails, the psychosocial support system also fails. And it puts paid to the fact that most of the abuse in society doesn't come from very far, but comes from very close family members, which makes it devastatingly effective, because when the abuse comes from very close, we expect it to come from very far. And everyone around you knows that the suspects should be or are expected to be from outside the family, and therefore they deliver this abuse in a much more devastating fashion, because one, they have the protection in the imagination that they are not the suspects. And secondly, the child who is being abused doesn't expect the abuse to come from the people so close to her, and also doesn't have any place to run away to. And it becomes so harrowing to an extent that the victim of abuse believes that there's something wrong with her, rather than something wrong with these people that I'm living with that are abusing me. And at some point, the author actually says that she became used to her mother's vitriol, right? And being used to that vitriol might suggest that at a certain point she reconciled herself that whatever the mother and the community were saying could probably be true. Hence, to illustrate this, when she was told that she smells badly and stuff, and she went to an extent of buying multiple toiletries, using 5-6 perfumes at one go, body butters and lotions, because she was trying to get rid of this smell, or to get rid of this bad beauty state that she was in, because she sort of internalized and sort of believed that. Also, in terms of writing this book, this is a courageous exercise which invites us to explore the dark recesses of humanity. What happens when Ubuntu departs from areas and spheres it is most expected to reside? It is unimaginable for most, especially Black African children, to have your grandmother abuse you, to have your grandmother neglect you. And I'm speaking as somebody who was raised by the great-grandmother and my grandmother. And all I can remember about them is the love and tender care that they sort of raised us with. We're 4 boys in my family. And in this instance, it becomes, for me, an experience of when Ubuntu departs from a certain community, departs from a certain society, departs from certain individuals whom we expect it to reside. And also, we wonder in this reading, what roles does a community play in the protection of children and of upholding morals? And here we see sort of a community that participates in the abuse of children. We're also invited to engage and think through of the evils that we are capable of, right, as human beings. It's not a detached story, but it's something that we are also capable of doing, should we let something go out of our humanity. In addition, we're also called to engage with the goodness that we are capable of through the expectations that we have of what a normal society is supposed to be. The fact that for some of us, Mayor, you gave us a category of different types of people that will read this book. Some will sympathize, some will not sympathize. And I'm saying that to those of us who are able to sympathize, it's sort of an indicator that our consciences are still probably in the right place, and therefore we are called through the reading of this book, and the author does this beautifully, to know what we are capable of, and through the expectations that we have of the people who are doing evil. People are abusing this young lady in the book, and also from the author's side, I guess, and this is from every other human who has been a victim of abuse. Look at most post-colonial Africans, how they extended grace to their abusers, which are colonialists, some of whom became members and part of the post-colonial society and retaining certain privileges that are never retained or that are never accessed by the formerly colonized and abused. What she gives us from the abused perspective is the power of moving on, and also the power of forgiveness that cannot be understated. She moves on in various ways and partly continues to sort of assist and help those who abused her. Not that she forgets that these people did this, but the extension of that grace sort of helps to defeat and also helps them to rebuild themselves, because if she becomes a prisoner of the abuse that they did to her, she imprisons herself and also she imprisons them. But in an attempt to sort of humanize them again, even though it's difficult, and there's a psychological journey that she takes us through this, she helps them by showing that she is forgiven. She helps them to be human again. And I guess the shame that they carry, or the shame that they carried, will have to deal with them in this transformation that she's trying to get them through. They have to negotiate that sort of murky space. But at the end of the day, the power of moving on and forgiveness, for me, cannot be overstated. And also the fact that she manages, we can say she manages to do better in life despite the circumstances and not being a prisoner of her past, is actually admirable. And this is one book that surely we need to engage with. We need to read to see what society, or to actually gauge if we moved very far from what is happening in this book as a society. Where are we going? What can we do better? I think my 5 minutes is over. Che, thank you so much for the opportunity to give reflections.
Thank you, Professor Mpofu. In fact, to sum up what you're saying, it's what Dr. Zungu puts on the table. It's to shatter the glass that says what happens here stays here, because that's basically why most of us, most people, so to speak, and I would like to argue, irrespective of the race, class, it's one of those unwritten rules in families that what happens here is a family issue, stays here. Dr. Chibongoze, our research fellow at Center for Civil Society at UKZN, we really want to hear your nuggets on this beautiful text. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. There's too much light coming from my background. Apologies for that. Thank you so much, Chair, for facilitating this session. And thank you to UNISA Press for inviting me. I was quite fortunate, or rather, should I say unfortunate, to be one of the few people to read this book before it was published. And I can say that it was one of the heavy books that I've read in a while. And some of the things I really thought they couldn't happen to a person, you know, and it left me a bit scarred for some time. But I just want to give a reflection because I did my junior degree in psychology before I left psychology altogether because of the trauma it came with the field. So when I first read this book, I began to reflect on the possible reasons why Gugu's mother would be so violent towards a child, a powerless child. In attempting to understand this behavior, I then did a mental play. I was reminded of my undergraduate lecturer, Dr. Elliot Nkoma. Is one of the respected child psychologists back in Zimbabwe. He introduced me to a concept called kick the cat syndrome, right? It's self-explanatory. You get into the house and then you're frustrated, you've had a rough day, and then you just displace it towards the cat. You just kick it out of the way. Right. So kick the cat syndrome is a psychological phenomenon that refers to a situation in which an individual displaces anger, frustration from a person who holds greater power over them onto someone perceived to be weaker or less threatening. I could not help but notice this pattern of displacement playing out across the lives of several characters, that is Gugu's grandmother, who experienced abandonment when Philip chose another wife, Umkhulu Philip. And then, of course, Gugu's mother, who experienced a similar form of rejection from Jabu, who left her, and how this frustration or anger or regret was displaced towards Gugu herself, first from the grandmother who left her at the hospital for close to 7 months, unbelievable, and also the mother who continued to exert violence towards Gugu herself, and also the mother becoming the victim of the grandmother's violence, you know. So it's sort of like it cascaded through the 3 generations. Right. And then it's deeply unfortunate that Gugu becomes an outlet through which her mother and grandmother attempt to cope with their psychological wounds and unresolved relational trauma. In this context, Gugu is effectively used as an antidote to numb this emotional pain and that they carry. For them to discharge violence towards Gugu appears to function as a misguided form of therapeutic release, allowing them to temporarily relieve the anger and frustration produced by their own experiences of abandonment, oppression, and suffering. Then I contextualized the characters in the larger social organization of the South African society. And of course, putting the history of South Africa's political organization into play, like the colonialism and the advent of the formal advent of apartheid in 1948, on how it also exacerbated violence in Black communities, among Black families, and also within Black communities. And of course, writers like Steve Biko have also directed us towards how violent really manifests in Black communities. You find that a father is timid, or a male figure is timid at a workplace, is being slapped across his face by a small white boss, and then he comes back at home, and then he's frustrated, and then he starts exerting violence towards the wife and the children. I also want to extend the violence that Gugu experienced. I also want to contextualize it within another form of violence that is directed towards Black communities, structural violence, in terms of material poverty, in terms of how labor is subjected to serve those that are occupying elite positions, or the advantage that are in a position of privilege, right? The sheikh, she kept referring to the mud sheikh that the mother constructed with the help from neighbors. It becomes a site of violence. The sheikh in itself, before the violence is enacted, it's a form of violence. You cannot live in a sheikh and not be, stimulated to become violent. It doesn't become a safe space. Who always tries to run away when the blows come, and then she tries to hide under the bed, because it's just a one-room sheikh, right? So the environment really stimulates that violence that Gugu ends up receiving, right? There is written text on how violence emanates from how the built environment is constructed. Second, I also want to direct to the labor, the exploitation of Black labor, and how it also stimulates or how it fuels violence at the home place. I mean, the mother having to take a lot of taxis, going to the workplace and coming back, and having to be subjected to sometimes being rewarded through being given food and spices and so forth. It also, I'm not saying that the violence was warranted, but it also stimulates that violence. So this book is useful in also conducting a forensic analysis of how the apartheid or the colonial order still perpetuates violence in African families to this very day, right? So the author does a good job she really points out at some instances, she really goes deeper into that discourse of how the violence is also structural, although it manifests itself in form of insults that has a psychological impact, in form of physical violence, in form of sexual violence, and so forth. I would like to end here. We can continue the discussion. So I think my 5 minutes is up, but this is a very, very painful book. I'm reminded of Nervous Conditions when I read this book. I also, she has got this Dickensian writing style that I like. It's so vivid. You can actually smell, you can actually see, you can actually feel. So I really enjoyed this book, although it was painful to read.
Thank you, Dr. Chibongoza. I think generally when you look at the text, the book touches on human rights, it touches on women's rights, it touches on family dynamics, culture, the broken system, the conflict. But where I want to go now, while the theme of the book really, and the title says Breaking Free, I think it's self-explanatory. There's one line and one character I want us to, for a moment, go to. Because in the absence of this character, we will not be sitting here today reading this book. It is even more so because most of this happens to most of us in lives. In the bigger scheme of things, you look so insignificant, and yet without your little act, your little role, the bigger story will not have been told. And the character I want to talk to is Kimberly, the little missus, the little child. When Gugu finds herself at work with her mother and Kimberly, they go for swimming. And as we'll have expected, I'm pretty sure it's explained in the book that Dr. Zungu, you could not swim, and Kimberly saves you. I'm drawn to this character for a number of reasons, without moving away from the broader aspect of what the book is about, which I said that is self-explanatory. But I also want to believe, consciously or otherwise, you brought Kimberly into that line for a particular reason. Because for me, firstly, Kimberly is an unsung hero. We never hear about Kimberly again. It's a very little child who seems to have done something very insignificant, but as I've contextualized, if 5 minutes passed and Kimberly did nothing, Dr. Zungu, as we know today, will not have been here because we would have drowned. That's number one. Number two, in the midst of apartheid, when I'm contextualizing the years, it says to me, kids know no race. Kids should, at the very least, I believe, they have inherent love for each other. So the hatred we see probably amongst ourselves, it's taught. But at the very basic level, we are born with love. And maybe it's another part, the golden thread that runs through the book that is not necessarily obvious. And I think it was Professor Mpofu who said that the traumas we have, we tend to relive through others. And he linked this to indicate that from his chat that we learn this thing, that's not how we innately born. But where I want to go, Dr. Zungu, I want us to take us through this character, Kimberly. And I want all of us to see ourselves through the eyes of Kimberly, because it also narrates to me that in the midst of pain, there is always a silver lining, and sometimes it's not obvious. Putting it differently, it's sometimes the acts that we think are insignificant that decades later, if they did not happen, the bigger picture would not have been there. Dr. Zungu, what's your reflection on Kimberly?
Kimberly was a child. She was my mother was a domestic worker at the time, and Kimberly, I remember her because number one, I couldn't speak English. She couldn't speak isiZulu. Secondly, she was just so warm towards me. That was something that was very rare in my life at the time. So I remembered her when I was writing the book because I was touched by how she was able to look beyond the color of my skin and see the human in me. So she was able to relate to me just as a child who was there to just have fun, enjoy swimming. She didn't know that I couldn't swim, but even when I was drowning, she risked her own life to try and pull me out of the swimming pool as best as she could, even though she didn't have any strength herself. So I never saw her again ever in life after that. But I was so touched by the fact that such a little human can look beyond all the barriers that society imposes onto us and just see the human being inside of me and be able to love me and risk her own life to save mine.
Thank you. Which is exactly my point, and thank you very much. That a moment with Kimberly, it's one of the critical moments in your life that if that moment did not happen, will not be sitting here today, as insignificant as it looks. And I'm probably bringing that into the context of the bigger structure of the conversation with the book to say every moment counts. Every person you come across, even if it's for seconds, count, because it might be the very same ones that benefit humanity next in life. And I wish to argue, as you correctly said, I don't even think Kimberly saw any difference between yourself and herself. I wish to argue that Kimberly had no idea of race, even in the midst of apartheid. But let me go around the table. There are colleagues who want to ask, and we engage more from Dr. Zungu, what she said, Professor Mpofu, and Dr. I always have to look your name, Chibongoze. Let me take names before colleagues can reflect on each other's conversations. I don't see any names now, any hands. But Doc, you go ahead. And reflecting maybe on this character that I just dropped into the ocean that otherwise looks insignificant, but in my way, in my mind, in more than one way, it's super significant.
Yeah, I remember the character Kimberly, who saved Kuku from drowning. And I'm not sure if kids are not aware of the racial differences. I beg to differ. I think that awareness is heightened at an early age. I feel like Kuku's inability to swim, I think it reflects lack of access to resources at that time. Swimming pools, community swimming pools, and if they are there, they are segregated. You can't access them. And then you see you look at Kimberly and his ability to swim and rescue Kuku.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I actually want to pose a question to the author. In writing the book and just listening to the speakers as well, a lot was touched on intergenerational trauma, economic issues and structural gaps that affect various abuse, or at least helps that abuse to take place. Do you feel that the reflection on your experience, obviously writing the book, helps in breaking the cycle, specifically in the intergenerational trauma cycle?
Thank you for the question. I definitely think that writing helped a lot because we don't talk about family business in public. We are taught, especially in the Black community, that what happens in this house stays in this house, no matter how shameful it is, no matter how dehumanizing it is, no matter how much it just like breaks somebody's spirits. So I think that by stepping up and speaking up, it erases the stigma of shame that keeps people silent, and it opens up conversations. And that's the first step to breaking intergenerational trauma. I mean, how can you heal from something, or how can you break a pattern when you simply refuse to acknowledge that it exists? Ne? So by writing about it, ne, and putting it out there, right? So we are now identifying an issue, and that's the first step to resolving it. So I truly believe that by writing the book, I did my part in breaking the generational trauma in my family, at least. And hopefully other people can do the same.
Thank you, Dr. Zungu. Bean Dombela, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Lovely, loud and audible.
If I may pick it from your throwing off the character of Kimberly and connect it to the entire narrative, especially the epilogue part of it. I take it as that children generally represent the innocence. So a child is innocent in as far as seeing color, or any other, especially in this context, or any other aspect that would otherwise negatively treat another human being. Whilst the rest of the characters in the book, in fact, represent the age of experience. And in fact, the entire narrative gets summarized in the epilogue part of the book, that actually all these misbehaviors, all these forms of abuse can be reduced into a mental sickness, narcissism, and psychopathology. And that's what most of them are suffering from. Now, the author is the victim here, but fortunately, the victim who does not inherit the same kind of sickness. The question obviously arises, those who are sick, because that sort of mental condition would at some stage require some sort of professional intervention. And the book obviously does quite a lot to the author as a victim, as a form of escaping. I think the writing process in itself becomes the form of escaping what would have been the grave of the author. But she's able to escape and be able to tell how she has not been entangled in the same cycle of sickness. If she can reflect a little bit for me, especially, the whole issue of, I know there are ethical issues of anonymizing and etc. But how does that has an effect on her coming out and represents the reality out there and saying, look at me, I'm a real human being. And I have gone through these sort of traumas as a victim, but I'm alive, I have made it, And I wish there could be some help and remedy for those who are inflicted in my family with narcissism and psychopathology. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob Ntombela. Dr. Zungu, you want to reflect on that?
Okay, I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but I'm gonna do my best to answer it. Okay, so I was reading a book by Dr. Ramani Duvasala, and she is the foremost expert on personality disorders in the world. So she claims that, in most families, there's somebody who has a strong psychological constitution. That means that your brain, your psychological makeup is just designed to be resilient to certain things, to certain forms of abuse, all right? So I think in my family, that was me. I mean, I went through a lot, but for some reason, I was able to emerge relatively sane enough to be able to live, carve out a life for myself, and then be able to forgive all these people. So basically, what I'm saying is that there are people who are just psychologically wired to withstand a lot of turmoil. So that's number one. Number two is that I think in my case, okay, let me put it to you this way. When you are in that type of situation of deep trauma and deep distress, you always need to find something to hold on to. For me, it was education, and it was also my faith. So hopefully, if people manage to get their hands on the book, they will realize that, you know what, I can also look to my life and identify something that can help me to hold on long enough for me to be able to come up with an escape plan. As for identifying resources to help my family, to be honest with you, Doctor, I'm not sure if those types of resources exist, simply because at a certain age, we are who we are. And if we are mentally ill, that usually worsens over time. It doesn't get better. So for my family members, I think the best thing is to just accept that they are who they are. And for people like myself who are victimized and who find themselves in similar situations, the lesson is for them to make a way out, to just come up with an exit plan, and to just accept that, you know what, the abusers are set in their psychological ways. And there's not much that can be done to remedy that, unfortunately. So yeah, let me just stop there. I hope I answered your question.
Wow, thank you everyone. Dr. Zungu, this book, it's a library for many in this context, and I'm sure many people want to lay their hands on it. But as we about to exit, what do you say to, going to give two categories of people? What do you say to people who are going to read this book and just don't believe it, that this can happen? Of course, you are not responsible for what I'm thinking and what I'm prepared to take, but from the point of being the part of the corkscrew in healing the nations, because this goes beyond a narrow nation of the community in South Africa. That's one. And secondly, how do you encourage, or what do you say to someone who all that you have went through, there is somebody who has gone through but pointed at them as the perpetrator when they were not the perpetrator? Not that they don't believe what you say, they believe what is in the text, but they find themselves, and some of them probably sitting in jails as we speak, for the crime they never committed, but not that they don't believe what happened to you happened to somebody who accused them falsely.
All right. So to the people who might be skeptical, what I have to say is I hope that the book can help them to at least recognize the psychology of an abusive person, to understand the motives for why they do what they do, even if they are not directly affected. Hopefully, they are never in a situation where they have to live through what some of us have gone through. But in the event that at some point in life they find themselves in a similar situation, I'm hoping that they are able to identify the telltale signs of an abuser and make a way out for themselves. And for the people who have been victimized and maybe find themselves suffering in life as a result, maybe they're in a jail cell somewhere, what I will say is that you are under no obligation to forgive the people who have harmed you. I chose to do so because if I hadn't, it would have been like a tremendous weight on my soul. I felt as if I had already given up my childhood. I'm not prepared to give up my adulthood to hating my abusers, you know. That's even giving them like essentially more power over me. So, but that's just me. I'm one person.
Right.
But to other people, what I am saying is you are under no obligation to forgive. Forgiveness simply means that you do not carry this weight psychologically every single day of your life, but you are under no obligation to reconnect. You can look for something to hold on to, look for a higher power, look for maybe a friend who can hear you and see you and validate your pain, and then build your life from there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sonko. Ladies and gentlemen, what a midday.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I must first apologize for being unable to make it to the launch today. Look, my contribution to this book can come from many places, but I want to highlight that it's quite an important book and cathartic in a way for people who have experienced abuse, especially at the hands of a parent. And it's a very good read and a very easy to read book. I remember after reading about 6 or 7 chapters, I called the author and I was saying to them, is this for real? Like, I kept on saying yo, because from the moment it starts, it details a sorry tale and an unfortunate story of how no matter how successful you become at the end of the day, you would have had to go through hell and back, if I may put it in those terms. But I think, and I think this is about more than just abuse, but it's about giving the reader a manual on how to pull themselves from that story, from that abusive parent relationship, and knowing to not give up no matter what happens. And I'm glad the way with the ending of it, because it's ending on a positive note. There are still other issues to deal with, but at least the book ends on a positive note for the people, for at least for the author concerned.
I'm happy I'm here, and I want to believe all of you are happy that you joined us for this hour of conversation in launching this book, Breaking Free from the Cycle of Family Abuse, A Daughter's Journey. We want to thank UNISA Press and all who are involved throughout this text, either through peer review, through copy editing, and a beautiful design, because when you look at the cover, it says a lot without saying much. It really says a lot, and it connects with the name of the book. We thank UNISA Press for thinking and believing that this book should be one of the books that we publish. Dr. Zungu, I want to thank you deeply. I'll give you a moment now, deeply for raising your head and opening up. This should be a lesson for many. And I know what I'm going to say probably has got nothing to do with the launch. It is my humble opinion that text like this needs to be exposed to the broader society, especially must find itself even to kids, because it is very much possible that this might even be happening to kids today. Professor Mpofu, thank you so much for your insights in reflecting and sharing your views on this text. And again, so to you, Dr. Chibongoza, thank you so much for your insights, and that also helped to connect back with your giving us the psychological, theoretical groundings on how to look at these characters in this book. Before I close, Dr. Zungu, over to you.
I just wanted to thank everybody from UNISA Press for making this book a reality. It was such a struggle to get published. It took a long time. So thank you so much for giving my story a chance. I know that it wasn't an easy read for most people, and a lot of work has gone into the artwork, into basically just literally every aspect of the book. So thank you so much. Without you, the story would have just died. It would have never seen the light of day. So I appreciate you and everybody who's read it, the reviewers, everybody who is here today. Thank you so much for giving structure to this whole conversation. It could have gone haywire, but you are here. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for taking me seriously. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure, Dr. Zungu. In fact, I will beg to differ with your assertion of yourself, and I think Dr. Chibongoza put it very eloquently. You cannot help but read and fully understand and locate and see what you're reading in graphic details, in location. But again, and the book is available for 300 Rand, Sensia, and the team is available at our website, www.unisa.ac.za/press. Let's spread the words, please. Thank you for the team that worked hard behind the scene to make this launch a success. And we even forgotten that we were having interesting technological challenges when we started. At this point, have a safe Friday, have a safe weekend. Let's read this book, let's spread the word, let's be the agent of change, just like Kimberly. That second of doing something important in the bigger scheme of things might be the only thing that is needed to change the lives of many decades down the line, even though we did not realize that our act of saving Gugu will be a bigger story tomorrow. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye, everyone.